The runway exploded in 4 places at once. Concrete buckled, steel rebar twisted skyward, and the Su-34 that had been taxiing for takeoff never moved again. 2 Ukrainian jets had just turned Russia's forward operating base into a junkyard, but neither pilot knew they'd triggered something that would question the strength of Russia's air defenses. What happened next didn't just shift the southern front, it detonated it, and the chain reaction started 96 hours earlier. In a reinforced bunker near Dnipro, mission planners stared at overhead imagery that was already 3 days old. The base at Saky had been quiet for weeks. No visible aircraft movements, minimal ground traffic. Either the Russians had abandoned it, or they were hiding something worth protecting. 2 pilots stood at the back of the room. The mission was already theirs, and they both knew the odds of coming back alive. Here's what made this mission borderline suicidal. Saky sat deep inside Russian-controlled territory, surrounded by overlapping air defense systems. S-400 batteries covered every approach. Fighter patrols ran 24/7. One mistake, one radar ping, and they'd have 30 seconds to live. But Ukraine had a window, a tiny one, and they were about to fly straight through it. October 14th, 2025, 4:17 a.m. 2 Su-27s lifted off from a base whose name would stay classified for another decade. Each jet carried 2 Storm Shadow cruise missiles. British engineering combined with Soviet airframes through modifications that shouldn't have worked, but did. Total payload, 4 missiles, 800 kilometers of range, 1 chance to get it right. The flight plan was precise. Avoid every known radar site within 200 kilometers. Skim the Black Sea at wave-top height. Then cut inland through a gap in coverage that existed only because 2 S-400 zones had been positioned 3 kilometers too far apart. The gap was 11 kilometers wide. At their speed, that gave them 48 seconds of exposure. 48 seconds before Russian operators detect, classify, track, and engage. But here's what the pilots didn't know. The gap was about to close. They flew 30 meters above the Black Sea. At that altitude, they were invisible to radar. Just wave clutter and noise. The jets ran in total emission control. No radar, no radio, nothing that could possibly give them out. Navigation was pure inertial and GPS cross-check. If the coordinates were wrong by even half a kilometer, the missiles would hit empty fields and the entire mission would be for nothing. The lead pilot checked his fuel, still green. His wingman held position 400 meters to the right, barely visible in the pre-dawn darkness. They'd rehearsed this profile 11 times over the past month. Every run ended the same way: missile release, hard turn, full afterburner toward home. What could possibly go wrong? They asked. Little did they know. 5:03 a.m. They crossed into the coverage gap. His radar warning receiver still stayed silent. 10 seconds to launch point. The Storm Shadows required 30 seconds of pre-flight alignment. 30 seconds while flying straight and level through hostile airspace. 30 seconds of being the easiest target Russian air defense had seen all month. His hands moved through the sequence. Master arm on, weapons select, target data confirmed. 15 seconds. Then his radar warning receiver exploded with sound. S-400 search radar, bearing 047, range 70 kilometers. They'd been detected. The gap had closed, or maybe it never existed. He had 9 seconds to release or abort. Aborting meant mission failure. Staying meant dying, so he chose option 3. 5:04:22. Both jets launched everything. 4 Storm Shadows kicked free, ignited their turbojets, and dove toward the deck. The pilots didn't wait to watch. Simultaneous 8G turns, wings vertical, afterburners screaming. The S-400 battery fired 6 missiles. For 11 seconds, physics and probability calculated whether Ukrainian pilots would see dawn. Missile 1 lost lock in the turn, self-destructed over water. Missile 2 tracked lead jet, but ran out of energy at 9 kilometers. Fell into the sea. Missiles 3 and 4 went for the wingman. He dumped chaff, broke hard left, then right. 1 missile took the bait, the other didn't. It is close to 3 kilometers. The pilot extended air brakes, chopped throttles, and let the missile overshoot by 200 meters. It tried to correct, couldn't turn fast enough, and detonated in empty air. Shrapnel peppered his left wing. Hydraulic pressure dropped 15%, still flyable. Missiles 5 and 6 never had a chance. The jets were already too low, too fast, masked by terrain. Both pilots were going to make it home. But the Storm Shadows, they were just getting started. 5:11 a.m. Saky Air Base. Morning shift had just started. Ground crew prepped a Su-34 for a strike mission. Fuel trucks moved between hardened shelters. In the operations building, a colonel reviewed weather data and sipped coffee that had gone cold an hour ago. None of them saw the 4 white shapes that crossed the perimeter fence at 880 kilometers per hour. The first storm shadow hit the underground fuel depot, but these weren't dumb bombs. The warhead counted milliseconds, penetrated 6 meters of reinforced concrete, then detonated inside the storage chamber. 2 million liters of jet fuel ignited in a confined space. The explosion didn't go up. It went sideways. A pressure wave traveled through underground pipes at the speed of sound. Fuel lines ruptured across the entire base. Within 3 seconds, burning fuel was fountaining from 20 different points. The ground itself was on fire. Storm Shadow 2 hit the runway intersection, cratering both the runway and taxiway. Every aircraft on the base was now trapped. The third missile found the command building. The colonel never finished his coffee. Communications went dark. The base was blind, deaf, and leaderless. But Missile 4, that one had the strangest target of all. It hit a warehouse 300 meters from the flight line. For 2 seconds, nothing happened. Then the building disintegrated in a low, rolling blast that shattered windows 3 kilometers away. The warehouse hadn't stored jet fuel. It stored something the Russians hadn't advertised. S-70 Okhotnik combat drones. 6 of them. Stealth UAVs worth $40 million each, prepared for deep strikes into Ukraine. Now they were burning wreckage. And here's where the real nightmare began for the Russians. The underground fuel fire couldn't be extinguished. Foam didn't work. There was too much heat, too much pressure. Water made it worse. For 16 hours, Saky burned. 11 fighters, 4 bombers, 3 transport planes sat useless, while flames consumed the infrastructure around them. The aircraft were fine. The hardened shelters were untouched. But none of it mattered. Russian engineers eventually stopped the fire by flooding the fuel depot with inert gas. By then, the damage was done. Saky wasn't destroyed. It was worse. It was intact but unusable, like a car with no engine. You could sit in it, but you weren't going anywhere. The base would stay offline for 8 months. 2 jets, 4 missiles, 1 target. The tactical victory was obvious, but the strategic impact took weeks to understand. Russia had to reroute all southern sorties through bases 200 kilometers farther east. That added 30 minutes to every mission. 30 minutes meant higher fuel burn, reduced payload, shorter time over target. Across 6 months, that delay translated to 400 fewer sorties, 400 missions that never launched, hundreds of Ukrainian positions that never got hit. The 2 pilots landed with battle damage and nearly empty tanks. Neither said much during debrief. They'd done the job. 3 weeks later, a Russian logistics report was intercepted. Buried in technical language was one line: Saky restoration timeline extended indefinitely pending infrastructure review. Translation: the base was finished. 2 pilots had just erased a $200 million facility from the war, and they did it without firing a single bullet. But the question nobody asked until later was this: if 2 jets could do this much damage to one base, what else had Ukraine been planning in secret? The answer would come 6 weeks later, when satellite imagery revealed unusual activity at 3 other Russian air bases along the southern front. Movement patterns that looked eerily familiar. The same pre-strike tactic. The same false sense of security. Ukraine had proven the concept worked. Now they are planning on their next move. And what would it be, if you would ask? I guess we would just have to wait and see.